let's kick straight off with Moses Itauma and the fight against Dillian Whyte on the weekend. How impressive does everyone think Moses was?
Yeah, I thought he was superb. But look, in Moses' situation right now, he's coming off the back of that, and you read the comments, etc., about, yeah, but we need to see him in with someone different. We need to see a live opponent. We need more rounds and all that sort of stuff. You go, you're deemed if you don't, and you're deemed if you do. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like it's one of those things that you just go, look, give the kid some respect. He went in there against Dillian Whyte. Yeah, all right, Dillian may have looked a shell of his former self once that bell rang, but he still had to do the job. What he went in there with, Simon, was the tick that he got was he dealt with the emotions that he had to deal with. He come through that with flying colours.
And all the other stuff going around.
And all the other stuff going around that, you know, with being
expectation, headlining and all that sort of stuff, yeah.
Etc. And I thought it was a great performance, a first-class performance.
I thought he was pretty exceptional. As Spencer's already said, you know, there's a lot of emotion going around on fight day, and you can only go out and do the job that you've got to do. And he went out and executed it to perfection. I think the fact that Dillian Whyte was probably, you know, obviously shot and over the hill, you know, you don't know you didn't know what he was going to bring until the bell went. And the fact that the kid just went out there and just done a number on him, and looked sensational doing it. 10 out of 10. Paul?
I thought a very good win. If he goes the distance and has a good, long, hard fight with him, then it's still a great win to beat someone like Dillian because he's so tough, so durable. But he made it look easy, and that's tough to do against someone like Dillian Whyte, especially how he fights, and on his day as well, as we say. But I'm really impressed with Itauma.
Yeah. I'm going to pick the bones out of Dillian in a minute, but what I want to do is, before we do that, I want to listen to Moses Itauma, who spoke to talkSPORT straight after the victory.
Did you feel any nerves coming in here tonight? No. The reason why I say that is because I've been in training for maybe 12 to 14 weeks, and I've ticked every box. So if it wasn't my night to win today, it wasn't going to be my night. But I knew that I'd done everything I could to make this night my night. It only took you 1 minute 59 seconds, but you were still careful, precise, brutal, and you finished it completely.
Thank you very much, Gareth.
But you were still patient, weren't you?
I mean, that was one of the things where the team wanted me to get a couple rounds out, so I was like, maybe I should slow it down a little bit, but I saw he was hurt, and we went for it.
You've been going at these guys. You texted Dillian when you were 14 and asked him to go sparring with you. You seem ready. People are saying you're hyping this guy too much. You seem ready for all of them. Are you ready for all of them?
What do you reckon, Gareth?
I think you're ready.
Now, I'm going to open myself up to observations of never having laced up gloves and never having the right to say some of these things. But I'll frame that question in this framing of it now before I get into my view on it. Was this really a case of Moses being so good, or was it a case of Dillian being so bad?
The hype is real. Moses is that good. That is the facts. You know, if you look at the history of this kid, going back to when, as Gareth was saying there, when he was 15 years of age, you hear the stories circulating around the gyms. You know the stories are real. You know, and he's given a lot of good fighters a lot of problems at a very young age. And he's delivering as a pro. You look at the setup of that, you know, southpaw for one, he's very spiteful, very calculated, very precise. He mixes it up. He's very hard to read. The kid is the next superstar. That is it. And I think he underlined that with the win over Dillian. Forget what rumours were circulating about Dillian Whyte, you know, before the fight. The facts are the facts. He went in there, he fought him, and he had to do the job, and he done it.
But the rumours that were circulating about Dillian were... and I'll paraphrase what you said the other day, a lack of engagement, a lack of interest, seemed to be disinterested. And I'm desperately keen to want to give Moses Itauma all of the plaudits that he should be given because he's going in there and doing the job that's asked of him. But I'm finding it difficult to move past what Dillian brought into this fight, because the Dillian Whyte that would have fought him 4 or 5 years ago, the Dillian Whyte before he was humbled against Tyson Fury, is not the Dillian Whyte that's gone into that ring on Saturday night. So I'm trying to not lose my mind over being disproportionately harsh on my judgment of what Moses Itauma did, because he did what was asked of him. Yeah. All he can do is go and knock someone over, and that's what he did. He did it in 2 minutes. But this idea that we're building him up into a superstar, has he fought a live one yet? Have we seen him in with a live one?
Well, the wind hasn't changed yet. You know, nobody's hitting back yet, and you can only beat what's put in front of you, Simon. And if you're going out and you're blowing everybody out in 1 or 2 rounds, then all well and good. But at some point in time, the wind will change and he will get hit back, and then the questions will be asked. How well can he take a shot? Now, a lot's been made of that recently, you know, because nobody's put it on him.
Yep.
You know, so we don't know if he can hold his shot. We don't know if he's got good stamina. All these questions have never been answered because he's blown everybody away. Dillian Whyte was never going to give us those answers at no point. At no point.
I mean, but he is being billed, Paul, as someone that was going to give us those answers, because everyone looks at Dillian in a certain way, and the fights that he's been in, and the battles that he's been through, and the fighters that he's fought. But I watched Dillian. We listened to him all week. Duke was on last week with me, said I think he's a bit disinterested. I thought he was a bit lacking intensity, pushing back against punditry, you know, in a way that everyone was saying, "Well, I think you're going to get done here, Dillian." And he was like, "Wait and see. All you experts, you know." Yeah. But the fact of the matter is, everybody did. Because Dillian walked into that fight from the moment he appeared on the screens, and I know there's a lot of us that are now analysing ring walks left, right and centre. When Anthony Joshua walked in against Daniel Dubois, it was a certain mindset. When Daniel Dubois walked in against Alexander Usyk, it was a certain mindset. But if ever there was a mindset that seemed to be visible, was Dillian seemed to be detached mentally from the job that was in hand. And so with that in situ, can you be judging of Moses' excellence when you look at Dillian Whyte, go, great name on the resume, but it was Dillian Whyte in name, but not in spirit, in my view.
Yeah, you can look at it that way. I'll play the other side of the fence and explain in the fact that I think maybe he was been there, seen it, done it, got the T-shirt. This is a young kid. No one's expecting me to win, so there's a lot of pressure off me. I can now go in. I didn't hear any stories from the gym. They may be there. They may have been an injury. I don't know. But also look at it this way. Dylan came out, he was stalking, he was chasing the fight, he was pressing, and then he got caught with a big shot right in the back of his head. Not a foul because he dipped into it.
Disorientated him.
And they take everything away from you. And from then on, it was curtains. So no matter what happened in the rest of the fight, we wasn't even going to get to see the later rounds. Had Dylan have got through the first round, second round without that shot, we may have seen some form of offence from him. We may have seen some form of pressure and maybe land a couple of shots, but I do think Itauma's really that good. I personally think he's special. I think the way he punches, how he punches, he's very relaxed, very lean. He whips the shots in really nice. He's knocking everyone out and has been doing it since he was a 14-year-old kid. I think he's special, and I think maybe not so much Dillian Whyte being bad. He is special.
I agree with that, and for him to deliver the way that he delivered, that's why it's such an impressive performance, because he stepped up into another level.
But is it, again, I'm not trying to be a clever I'm not trying to be divisive and controversial just for the sake of it. Because I make the point, and it may be because I have a lack of knowledge and you guys can fill the gap. I watched Dillian walk in there, and the moment I watched him walk into that all the time, I think he's not mentally in this space.
I thought he looked a little bit nervous myself on the night. I said, I was sitting on the couch watching it, I think he looks a little bit nervous
himself. And since 2022, I remember watching Dillian walk into the press conference with Tyson Fury, and I was a major campaigner, you know, in terms of voice about how much Dillian should get paid for this fight, how he was getting missed out on all the mandatories. And when he walked into the fight with Fury, it was like a mouse. Didn't say anything in the press conference, and he was beaten before he got in the ring, and he put up a performance that, you know, Fury ran him ragged, didn't he? In this fight, I watched him come in and I'm thinking, am I going to see a howling wolf? Am I going to see the kind of intensity that tells me that mentally, physically, I think he's here, but mentally, I don't think he is. And so when I watch him and I walk in, and I wasn't surprised he got knocked out in the first round.
At 38 years of age also, Simon, you know, like I say, when you've been to the gym and you start training, your body just shuts down. You can't produce any of the goods. You try to do your runs, it don't work. Everything aches, everything falls apart. And like I say, he seemed totally disinterested.
You were talking the other day, Duke, about you felt what would happen. As you said, disinterested, and then we talked about what was likely to happen in a fight. And I was hoping that Moses would come out looking impressive, Dillian would get a few whacks, and in the fourth round he'd be staring across the ring at Moses Itauma saying, "You're in a fight,
You're
son."
in a fight,
right?
exactly.
And you felt that what would happen was that Dillian Whyte would run out of heart or run out of desire as it got more difficult around about 7, 8, and 9. So are you really surprised? Or is, again, I'm picking at it. It feels like I'm picking at a scab, but there's a hype train around Moses. He doesn't need any help from me.
No.
It's already there, right? Everyone's going to be telling him how wonderful he is, and I'm not suggesting that he isn't, because on current evidence he is. But are you surprised with Dillian that he got himself in a position where he could get knocked out in the first round? Or is it just simply, pack it in, Simon, this kid is that good that it doesn't matter what that Dillian Whyte brought into that ring?
It's probably a little bit of both. You know, Moses Itauma, I'm sure they sparred together, Dillian Whyte and Moses Itauma, you know, in the previous sort of life, if you will. they probably sparred together. And if Moses was handling him in sparring several years prior to this, that's where he's got a lot of his confidence from going into this fight. He's a lot more experienced now in terms of when they first sparred to when he's had 12 fights now, and now they're fighting for real. Do you see what I mean? So then he's gone in there with all the confidence in the world, knowing he could handle this older man, and he just did a number on him. I thought Dillian would take him a few rounds so we could get these answers to the questions.
I think that shot, though, that scrambles all you said.
It did.
It's where it lands. And
Dillian went
that's
for
a bit of a canceller, isn't it?
Yeah.
It puts stops to any plans you've got. If you get caught with a shot that high on the head, you could see the reaction from Whyte as soon as he was caught straight away. It wasn't going to go past that first round.
How technically good was the knockout? I was talking to Adam Catcher earlier on. He was talking about the technical ability, because a lot of people are not talking about the technical ability of Moses Itauma. He said, his feet were in the right position. He says that ultimately he goes in. There's never any risk for Moses Itauma to get one back, right? But the execution of the outcome was as good as it gets. Yeah. Are you in that space?
Definitely.
Yeah.
And when you have someone hurt, that's a 47 pro fight, and I used to, as soon as I have you hurt, I'm jumping all over you. But you leave yourself open. If you can be patient and work your way in, still have the confidence and the patience. But when you punch like Itauma, you're going to have that confidence. You're going to have that patience, and he knows he has to stay patient to do so.
Yeah, it's the speed that he puts these combinations together, the hand speed, the foot movement as well, and he's working him up and down. You know, Dillian Whyte didn't know where those shots were coming from, because they were just coming from all angles, Simon.
It's foot control. He's controlling that space the whole time. He keeps that distance, and he's got that edging speed anyway. And he's setting that lead right hand. Look at the way he's pulling that up and down all the time. He's putting his opponent off. Dillian doesn't know where them shots are coming from, and the execution was perfect. The setup was perfect. That straight left hand to the body hurt Dillian Whyte before he done that. He literally held his head with his left hand and whipped him over with that left hook. Like, his boxing IQ is exceptional, and I think that we have to accept that. Yeah, all right. A lot of talk is about Dillian Whyte and what actually he had left. Going into that ring at that time, no one really knew that. And that young kid didn't know that either, Moses Itauma. You're looking at that, that's why that was such a great performance.
I was expecting a good fight, and I think we have to not slate Dillian Whyte too much and praise Itauma, because I think that was because I
was expecting a good fight, and I was sat there disappointed because I wanted to see Moses be asked questions, because somewhere along the line he's going to get asked questions. And at this moment in time, I'm not sure that we're learning that much, because I look at Marius Wack. When he fights Marius Wack, he was a punch bag at that stage in his career. Dempsey McKean got all his chops from fighting Filip Hrgovic. And Mike Balogun was an NFL footballer that's found his way into boxing that got knocked out by Moses Itauma. And I'm trying to be pragmatic in my thinking without being a miserable, but I still feel that the expectation, that the main benefit for Moses Itauma in that fight is Dillian Whyte is a good name to have on your resume, but that was the former fighter, Dillian Whyte. That's not the Dillian Whyte that we were anticipating or hoping might turn up in that fight.
But Moses didn't know that coming into the ring. That's why I say that was an exceptional performance, because Dillian...
But he's saying how confident he is. You're saying about the nerves and the expectation. Duke is saying, Turman is saying, he was already sparred with him. He already knows that what Dillian Whyte has and hasn't got. There wouldn't have been the fear factor there.
15-year-old kid, that was a long time ago. And what I'm saying is, like, Dillian's had a great career. You're going into that ring, this is a step up, a significant step up in levels here. And it's the execution of taking him out in 2 minutes. Doesn't matter how much Dillian Whyte's deteriorated, to get rid of him in 2 minutes,
it's a statement,
in under 2 minutes, is a statement.
Do you attribute? I mean, Andy Lee was talking about injury to Dillian Whyte. Paul was talking about no information coming out of the camp. Is there anything in this that Dillian Whyte was potentially on the cusp of not going into this fight? Injury was part of it?
Everyone was talking about this broken foot, or his supposed injury to his foot that he had. When he went into that corner before the bell rang, he jumped up and down on the spot, and about 10 times. Straight away told me, look, rumours circulate. There was also rumours circulating that Moses had a bad back. People, they start these rumours. The facts are the facts. Don't want no excuses. They went in there and he delivered, and that was what it was. Like, I'm not interested in after the event, he was injured, this and that. He had to deal, they went in there, the bell rang.
Don't get me wrong, I'm very excited by Moses Itauma. I think he will be precisely what everyone thinks he's going to be. I just want to examine narratives, because people get carried away with things and make assertions and judgments, and we get carried out. You wanted to tell me that Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul was a real wasn't.
Why are you rebirthing that?
Because I like that argument, because it does you no credit whatsoever. How do we look at Dillian Whyte's career? How will we remember Dillian Whyte? Because I think we are now... I think Dillian doesn't need to be in a ring again after that performance. I don't think there's any point. I think he's made a decent amount of money out of boxing. He's got a decent reputation. But when we look at Dillian Whyte as a heavyweight contender and as a British heavyweight over the last 10, 12 years, how do we look back on him?
We had his debut in 2011, so it's like 14 years. He's given us some good entertainment. He's been involved in some big fights. And, you know, I look at that and I go, he's one of the characters of this modern era. You can't take that away, you know, from Dillian Whyte. I think that, you know, he's given us some good nights.
He's been someone you respect constantly from not ducking a fight. He's been in with the best. He's been in with them all. And he's always fought with his heart on his sleeve and always left it in the ring. In my opinion, the last fight, obviously, that was an early finish where he's been caught, been hit and been took out of there, obviously. And that's obviously not how he will want to bow to the game, but I feel that's probably the last of it for him now.
Yeah, a good servant to the sport of boxing. Unfortunately, always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
Yeah.
The big fights have always eluded him.
And when he got them, I mean, he fought Tyson Fury at Tyson Fury's best moments, didn't he? And ultimately, he didn't get the outcome that he wanted. He's a character. When we look at characters, are we losing too many at this moment in time? And do we think Moses, very young, I mean, I was looking at this pursuit of Moses to become the youngest heavyweight champion in the world. That's now evaded him. And comparison with Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson had 28 fights before he fought Trevor Berbick. This kid's had 12, 13 fights now. When you look at Moses' outlook and behaviour during the course of this week, and we're talking about Dillian Whyte being a character, we're talking about Tyson Fury being a character, we're talking about AJ being a character, and potentially these guys we're losing them. Do we see Moses as being someone that will have the kind of character that will make you talk about him as much out of the ring as you do in the ring?
Yeah, I think that this was the launch pad for Moses. You know, I think this takes him to another level again. There'll be more self-belief there than there ever was before because he's beat a name like Dillian Whyte. Forget all the background noise surrounding it all.
Is that true?
I think
is that
he's
true,
20
guys?
years of age.
Will he not know? Well, you know, you're saying he's got all the confidence now because he's beaten Dillian Whyte. Will he not know in himself that maybe that wasn't the best version of Dillian Whyte? Or is it just a case of it doesn't really matter? You get your momentum, you get your momentum.
If we're talking about personalities, his personality isn't that of a Tyson Fury or a Dillian Whyte. Yeah, he's not about to be coming to the ring in a Batman suit or anything like that, or be singing, singing a song or whatever it is. He's quite. He's got an old head on young shoulders. That kid.
What I'm seeing with him, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way. I mean it as a compliment. He's got arrogance. He's got that arrogance. And when he was speaking to Gareth, then he go, "What do you think, Gareth?" You know, I think he knows he's going to be the best. I think he's got that supreme confidence / arrogance, which all the top champions need and all the greats have. And he's got that arrogance about him already in a complimentary way. I mean that. As in, he knows he's going to walk through after division.
Belief.
And he's got that big, deep-rooted belief in himself, which is borderline arrogance, which he needs as a top pro fighter.
Listen, heavyweight boxing, 8 of his 13 fights have been inside the first round. People like to see that. That arrogance is in his performance. And I think
it's a good thing.
That's it. What do you think, Simon? Do you think that he's got the potential, that star quality? Forget what he does.
I don't know if he has yet because I don't see that flamboyance in him. I mean, the most flamboyant fighter we've had recently has been Tyson Fury. Chris Eubank is quite flamboyant in his own way because he holds people to task. I don't think he's one of those, but I'm not entirely sure how flamboyant Mike Tyson was. What was flamboyant about Mike Tyson was the absolute terror that he struck into his opponents and the way he cut a swathe through the industry. So I think he has the potential to do that. How that translates into making him a superstar, I don't think that really
I think there's other roots to that as well. Frank Bruno wasn't a bad person or arrogant. He was loved and adored and still is to this day. The stars that we had coming through in the 80s, Ben and Eubank and the great fighters like that, they were not all the same, but they were loved by the fans and or loved to be hated. And I think that's the route. There's still either way to get there, but I think he can come across, if he comes across as a nice, likeable boy next door, lad next door, the heavyweight next door, then maybe he can come across that way.
And if he's still knocking out guys like all the other heavyweights that are coming through, if he's still knocking these guys out in 1 or 2 rounds, then obviously his boxing speaks for itself.
Absolutely right.
Do you see what I mean? Absolutely. Doesn't have to be flamboyant, does it?
Absolutely right.